And thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Zach Allison with ATS. I'm our National Accounts Manager, run our market development team that works with architects, engineers, and interior designers all across the US and Canada. I work with our ATS spec tool, which is a wonderful house of brands that helps you select, configure, and specify code compliant product across various states and provinces. We also take a very much a right product for the right application focus. And that's why we started our ATS University sessions to help architects and engineers understand the product that they are selecting and how to select it. One of the big efforts that we've done is to provide a wide array of credentialed CEUs, and that's what we're focusing on today. So we do have an industry expert here on accessibility, Alan Gettleman from the Bobrick team. He's going to be running through the planning guide for accessible washrooms. We will, of course, be sending out our standard certificate of attendance by the end of the week. However, I do have a link here to post, which will allow you to self-report for your CEU credits. We'll also be providing the list of attendees to Bobrick so they can verify and approve and send out all these CEUs. So I'll post that now. Of course, there's going to be lots of questions as we go. I've been discussing this with Alan, and there's some good breaks along the way. So if you put your questions into chat, I'll be sure to bring them up to Alan as we get to the end of the section, and we can answer any of your specific details that come up. One of the favorite parts of all of the ATS universities, at least for me, is when we get to the end and I get to take over and show how you can find the product that we're talking about today. So if you have not seen the ATS spec tool, how easy it is to find, configure, and select the products that we talk about in all of these different ATS universities, then do stick around. It's a free software paid for by our wonderful partners and manufacturers that sponsor our system. So thank you, Alan, for being with Bobrick and being big partners with ATS across Canada and across the US. And thank you for spending some time with us today. I'm very eager and excited to learn.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate the invitation, the opportunity to participate in your ATS learning initiative. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a planning guide for accessible restrooms continuing education course presented by Bobrick Washroom Equipment. I am Alan Gettleman, Bobrick Vice President of External Affairs. I will be your virtual instructor for today's course. Bobrick is a registered provider for continuing education with both the American Institute of Architects and the Interior Design Continuing Education Council. Your attendance and completion of this course will be reported to the AIA or the IDCEC as appropriate. You will receive a certificate of course completion, which you can keep for your record keeping and self-reporting purposes. As Zach has mentioned, if you have questions as we go through the presentation, post them in chat, and there are definite breaks in the program where I will ask to look at the questions, and we'll try and answer them at that point.
And just on that point, Alan, I saw a couple of comments about the link not coming up. I think I've corrected the chat, so people should have the link now. If you're still having issues, do let me know in the Q&A field. And I saw a question about the slides available for download. We don't typically have the slides available for download, but I would say if you need a copy of the slides, feel free to reach out to me as we send out our follow-up, and we'll be sure to get that reference over to you.
All right, let's proceed. We're starting with the learning objectives. That's a requirement from the AIA in all of their learning units and sessions. We must have learning objectives stated at the beginning of the course, and we have 5 of them. So at the end of this course, you will be able to identify. I don't see one coming up. There it is. You will identify how accessible standards accommodate a wide, diverse set of users, and we'll also go over some of the general prescriptive requirements mandated by the ADA. We're also going to show you and help you understand the 2017 version of the ICC A117 standards, and particularly how they apply to existing and new buildings. We'll describe the requirements for accessible lavatories or hand washing and the various accessories that are related to that function. We'll also describe the requirements for accessible toilet compartments of different sizes and the related restroom accessories. And finally, we will discuss the bathing requirements, bathing facility requirements. I have to tell you that this presentation is protected by copyright laws, but if there's anything that you see in the presentation that you would like to have for your files or for your sharing with your colleagues or clients, I'd be happy to accept your request for permission to have a copy of the presentation and to use it. And you can reach me at Gettelman, Gettelman @bobrick.com. All right. First, you have to understand the Americans with Disability Act sets minimum requirements for newly designed and constructed or renovated government and public buildings for commercial application or government use. These facilities must be usable by individuals with disabilities. At a minimum, one of the each product in the plumbing area or the restroom accessories and their installation location must be accessible and usable by people with disabilities. And this is mandated by the ADA. Now, many projects may also follow the provisions of the ICC A117 standards. In this course, we will identify the benefits of accessibility standards and the prescriptive requirements set by the ADA and the A117 standards. Now, I have to supplement that information while we're covering the sort of the national requirements in the United States. And you also have to be aware that there are local state in the United States or local provincial in Canada accessibility requirements. And it's always important that you know not only the national standards, but the local standards that apply to your particular project. Okay, that covers the introduction. We'll take just a break and ask, are there any questions in chat?
Nothing ain't coming in so far.
Okay, good. Let's move on to learning objective number 1. And this is where we're going to emphasize how accessibility standards accommodate a diverse set of users. And we'll go over, there'll be some general requirements of the ADA and the I-117 that impact accessible restroom design in this section. The 2010 ADA standards apply to buildings nationwide. It is not a building code. What it really is, it's a federal civil rights law that recognizes inaccessible facilities as a form of discrimination. Discrimination against people with disabilities that are prevented from getting into the restroom. The A117 standards are adopted by states and then incorporated into their state building codes. Now, there may be significant overlap or confusion between ADA standards, A117 standards, and even local standards, local to a province or local to a state. Now, just a little housekeeping. As we go through this presentation, I will point out helpful learning points by giving you a takeaway alert. And at the bottom of the screen is our first takeaway alert. And it basically says that when you're working on a project that may have ADA requirements or A117 requirements or local, state, or provincial requirements, the best solution is follow the most stringent standard. Public restrooms are an essential building amenity and need to be responsive to a wide range of human abilities and disabilities. The needs of a person in a wheelchair and the space the wheelchair requires are the basis of design for accessible restrooms in terms of the clear floor space for that wheelchair, the paths of travel of that wheelchair into and through the restroom, and the reach range of users using that wheelchair. Now, while the standards are primarily intended to benefit people with disabilities, mandating restroom accessory and plumbing fixture mounting location and heights that are responsive to users' needs, experience has shown that environments built with accessible design features often benefit a wide range of users, including people with health problems, children, older people, and caregivers who are assisting all of these individuals. It's also important to consider sensory abilities. Examples that support safety for users with sensory disabilities include avoiding protruding objects to benefit those with low vision or the blind, increasing lighting levels to assist those with low vision, provide strobe lights on the fire alarm system to help people with hearing loss or those who are deaf. Family restrooms also accommodate other patron needs, such as diaper changing, adults with children, older individuals who need assistance, particularly from opposite gender caregivers and transgender individuals. Okay, now we begin to present a number of building blocks for accessible standards compliance. These building blocks include dimensional requirements expressed as minimums and maximums. First building block is the point at the top of the screen. The 2010 ADA standards designate the clear floor space to accommodate a single wheelchair. Now, the clear floor space at lavatories, urinals, baby changing stations must be positioned for a forward approach. See the three red arrows on the diagram. A portion of this clear floor space may be located under countertops, lavatories, or accessories as long as required knee and toe clearance is provided. Clear floor space at other elements, such as paper towel dispensers, waste receptacle units, and hand dryers, can be positioned for both a front, parallel, or side approach. See the two green arrows on the diagram. Takeaway number 2. If properly centered in front of controls and operating mechanisms, the clear floor space will allow both left and right hand access. Mounting heights for restroom accessories may vary within a restroom depending upon the location of the accessories. So let's talk a little bit about outside the toilet compartment. Accessories shall be mounted with the operable parts. That's the dispensing mechanisms, the start buttons, the electronic sensors, coin slots, or dispenser openings shall be located no more than 48 inches above the finished floor, as shown in the illustration at the bottom of the slide. It's important that you check the local codes. Just as an example, in the state of California, the maximum height of an operable part is not 48 inches, it's 40 inches. That's a significant difference. So know the local code. Now let's check inside the toilet compartment. The operable portions of toilet tissue dispensers should be mounted no more than 15 inches above the floor. That's per the ADA and the A117 standard. Oh, that's per the ADA, excuse me. The A117 standard limits the toilet tissue dispenser to no lower than 18 inches above the floor. And speaking of local standards, California is an example of a state that has a different than 15, different than 18. It has a 19-inch, no lower than 19 inches. So again, know the local code. Where accessories are mounted over obstructions such as counters, as shown in the photograph, the operable parts must be located maximum 48 inches above the finished floor when the obstruction is 20 inches or less deep, and a maximum of 44 inches above the floor when the obstruction is 20 inches or more deep. When determining the mounting location of restroom accessories, make sure to account for side and forward approach. Takeaway number 3. Position one of each type of dispenser to be should be located outside of the toilet compartment on an accessible route for increased accessibility. When designing restrooms primarily for children's use, select the dimensions that are most appropriate for the specific age group of the children for which you are designing. Just as a reminder, these are dimensions are a recommendation and they are not required standards. A universal design approach improves accessibility of products, spaces, and building elements to ensure they are usable to the greatest extent possible by people of all ages and abilities. Universal design can be accomplished by the following strategies. First, using the same product for everyone. For example, a countertop with multiple lavatories as opposed to individual lavatories with only one dedicated accessible lavatory. By positioning products differently, such as lowering the mounting height of all towel waste units for accessible compliance. By modifying or replacing a product feature. For example, changing a controlled toilet tissue dispenser to continuous paper flow dispensing by changing the dispenser spindle. And by replacing a product with one that is more accommodating. An example here is replacing a folded paper towel dispenser with an automatic roll paper towel dispenser. Some people with disabilities can only use certain features of fixtures and accessories if they can approach them from the left or right side. As a best practice, by providing clear floor space centered in front of controls and operating mechanisms will allow both left and right hand access and use. Okay. That brings us to the end of learning objective 1. Zach, are there any questions in the chat feature?
Yeah, there's one that came up early on as you were introducing the ADA versus the ICC. And they're asking, what are the differences between ADA versus the ABA? I'm not sure if that correlates in your mind.
the difference you said between the ADA and the A, did you say GA?
ABA, like building.
Oh. ADA and ABA are basically the same.
Yeah, essentially the same, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the question. Let's move on to learning objective number 2. And here we're going to cover the changes in the 2017 edition of the ICC A117 standard. And we're going to emphasize in the restroom how that impacts existing buildings and new buildings.
Sorry, just one other question before we dive into the next section. There was a question looking for an example of installation between 44 and 48 inches above an obstruction.
Okay, now we're talking about the mounting high over an obstruction, a countertop. So that would have to do with maybe a soap dispenser on the wall, a paper towel dispenser on the wall, and it's a matter of how deep the obstruction is, or how deep the countertop is, or how far you have to reach. So it's usually if the obstruction is the guideline is 20 inches. If you have to reach more than 20 inches, you have to lower from 48. You have to lower to 44. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So essentially, if you had let's use a drop-in basin in a counter, and you had your soap dispenser on the wall, and the basin is, the counter itself is more than 20 inches. Now that's an obstruction. So the soap dispenser has to go down from 48 to 44.
The towel dispenser opening would have to go down. The soap dispenser opening would have to go down.
Perfect. So hopefully that clarifies for you. Of course, if you have any additional questions afterwards, please respond to the follow-up email that comes up, and we'll be sure to utilize our partners to help answer your questions.
Okay, thank you for your attention and question. Moving on to learning objective number 2, there are significant changes in the 2017 version of the A117 standards. It increases the size of the basic floor space requirement for new buildings, and that would be in the wheelchair clear floor space, the circular turning space, and the T-shaped wheelchair turning space. And this is all designed to accommodate the variety of wheelchair sizes that people are using today. And we'll get into that right now. The basic wheelchair clear floor space for ADA and for existing buildings under the A117, 30 inches minimum width, 40 inch minimum length. Now, for new buildings in the A117, the wheelchair floor space has increased in length, 52 inch minimum instead of 48, and the same width, 30 inch minimum. Now, this larger wheelchair impacts the circular turning space, and the circular turning space allows a person in a wheelchair to make a 360 degree or 180 degree turn. And in the ADA and the 2017 standards for existing buildings, there is no change. It's 60 inch minimum wheelchair turning diameter. But in the 2017 ICC standards for new building, it now requires a circular space increased to 67 inches minimum diameter. The T-shaped turning space allows a 3-point turn. In the 2010 ADA and the 2017 standards for existing buildings, there's no change in the 60 by 60 minimum square with arms and base 36 inches minimum width. However, in the 2017 standards for new buildings, there are 3 new T-shaped turning spaces options that include different larger configurations. These larger options are 60 by 68, 60 by 64 with 36, 38, and 40-inch wide bases. Again, these larger options accommodate the new 30 by 52 wheelchair clear floor space. A portion of the circular or T-shaped turning space may be located under countertops, lavatories, or accessories as long as the required knee and toe clearance is provided. The knee and toe overlap clearance remains at 25 inches maximum in the 2010 ADA and the 2017 ICC standard for existing buildings. But for new buildings, in the ICC 2017 standards, the knee and toe overlap clearance is restricted to 10 inches maximum. All right, that brings us to the end of learning objective 2. Zach, are there any questions in the chat feature?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that came up. One asking if you can go over the guidelines for the allowed overlap between clearances.
The allowed overlap. Oh, the allowed overlap is 25 inches maximum. In other words, there can be the space under the countertop or under the lavatory can be as much as 25 inches. So that turning circle, it can go underneath. In other words, you don't have to have the 67 or 60 inches out in the middle of the room and no overlap. You can have some of that 60 or 60, some of that 60 inch or 67 inch can go underneath the counter or lavatory.
Gotcha. And then another question come up. I think it might be relating to like the ICC versus the ADA, but when does ICC STDA apply?
When do the ICC standards apply?
Yeah, I think that's what it's referencing.
Okay. All right. Number one, ADA applies as a minimum standard throughout the United States, all 50 states. The ICC is adopted individually by states. Right now, there are 46 states that have adopted the ICC standards as their minimum standard for their state. There are 4 states that have not adopted the ICC standards and only harmonize their local standards with the ADA. That's Hawaii, California, Texas, and Massachusetts. They are only ADA. All the other states follow the ICC A117 standards.
Thank you. And that kind of ties into one of the next questions. They were asking if the 2017 standards were required in all states or are they only adopted by certain states? They were asking specifically about Wisconsin, who uses the 2010 version. And then.
Okay, Wisconsin would be an ICC state. You would have to check and see which version of the ICC they adopted. The latest version of the ICC is 2017, but it may not have been adopted yet. The state, I mean, you can look up the Wisconsin State Building Code on the internet, and it will tell you which version of the ICC A117 standard they have adopted.
Kind of a correlated follow-up here. Another question asking, for all the states that adopted ICC, do they use the 2017 only, or do some use the 2013?
They would have to. Some states that follow some states automatically adopt the latest version. Some will have adopted a prior version and not the latest. So it's a matter of what the state, how the state integrates their state building code with the ICC standards.
And then a couple of questions on some of the details of the standards. So one of is a more general question. Are all of these standards applying to residential as well? And I think there might be a difference there between private residential and, say, multifamily.
The standards apply to really buildings of public accommodation. They can be government buildings, or they could be commercial buildings. That would include hospitals and schools, and but it does not apply to residential. Now, residential, a lot of residential standards are incorporate, but there are residential building codes that have to be referenced.
And then into some of the details that we covered here. So we talked about overlapping a little bit in regards to a counter. There's a question coming in regarding overlap of the turning circle and the door swing allowed. And if so, is there a max dimension there?
There are some dimensions, and we'll get into that a little bit later, that allow door swing to overlap and some that do not. So it varies. A door swing cannot overlap the clear floor space at a toilet. That's an example of the impact of door swing.
And then, again, you mentioned the toilet there. So looking at the single occupant toilet room, whether, family room or whatever it is, can you touch on the minimum actual size of such a universal washroom, specifically with the door swinging in and swinging out versus, say, best practice of sizing for like a comfortable space?
Well, that'll depend upon that will depend upon the placement of the toilet and in relationship to the door, because the toilet has to have a 56 by 60 clear floor space at it, and no door swing is permitted. Door swing is permitted into the wheelchair clear floor space at a lavatory, but not at a toilet.
And then kind of along a similar line of, thinking of how we can accommodate the space. There's comment about the new toilet paper dispensers, especially with the larger rolls. They take up a large amount of space. So the space between the partition and the toilet. So is there some allowance for moving the toilet to maintain the clearance? Does that increase the overall stall width? I think that would, you still need to maintain your turning radius. So if you move the toilet, then you're going to have a larger overall stall. Is that correct?
No.
No.
We'll get into that in a moment when we talk about toilet compartments. But toilet compartments, certainly for accessibility, the maneuverability at the toilet is on the open side of the toilet. The accessories, in like a toilet tissue dispenser, a grab bar, a napkin disposal, those are all mounted on the wall on the closed side of the toilet. So they don't impact the maneuvering onto the toilet, from a wheelchair onto the toilet. The projection of the wall, generally speaking, of a toilet tissue dispenser, is a maximum of 6 inches is really permissible, because it's not a projection into a circulation path.
Okay. So I think last question here just on this category, and then we'll move on, because there's a number of great specific questions coming in that, maybe if we want to circle back at the end, we can try, but I want to at least make sure we respect the time of everyone on the call to cover the entire presentation. So the last question is kind of in, what determines a new versus old building, and does the 6 to 7 inch turning radius apply to a restroom renovation, which is essentially a new restroom in an existing building?
A total renovation of a restroom would require complying with the new building standards.
And is that based on a percentage of like floor space that's being renovated?
No, I mean, if you're basically taking one restroom back to the stud walls and you're putting in new fixtures, you're going to have to check with the authorities having jurisdiction, but it's very possible that you might have to comply with the new building requirements.
All right, so I guess we'll kind of cap it there. Hopefully that explains kind of the new versus old, and let's dive into the next section. I'm sure we'll have lots of great more questions.
Okay, let's move on to learning objective number 3. And here we're going to focus on accessible lavatories and related accessories. So lavatories, vital feature in public restrooms to provide convenient, hygienic hand washing facilities for all people. At least one lavatory in each restroom must meet or exceed the ADA standards for accessible lavatories. And those first of all, the lavatory should be installed as close as possible to the front edge so it is accessible. The accessible lavatory must be installed with the front of the highest point of either the rim or the countertop surface 34 inches maximum above the finished floor, and have a vertical knee clearance of 27 inches from the bottom of the apron to the finished floor. And that knee clearance must extend 8 inches minimum under the front edge of the lavatory. The required forward approach must provide clear floor space in front and under the lavatory, which is 30 inches wide minimum and 48 inches deep minimum for the ADA and for existing buildings. For new buildings, that clear floor space has to be 52 inches deep minimum. Complete the design by providing the required amount of toe clearance depth underneath the lavatory of 17 inches minimum to 25 inches maximum. And then the toe clearance height has to be 9 inches minimum for the entire depth of the lavatory. Water supply, drain pipes, and exposed surfaces under the lavatory must be insulated or otherwise configured to protect against contact. One solution is insulated or wrapped pipes, as shown in the drawing in the upper right. Another solution is to provide a removable protective panel under the lavatory. The A117 2017 standards require altered installation heights and heights and locations for towel dispensers and hand dryers that are located on an adjacent wall to a lavatory or a countertop, as shown in this illustration. Now, the A117 standards require in restrooms having 6 or more lavatories, the soap dispenser and faucet at one lavatory needs to be installed with a maximum reach of 11 inches, as shown on the left side of the countertop in this plan view illustration. Operable parts, which include push buttons, valves, knobs, and levers, must be operable with one hand without tight grasping, pinching of the fingers, or twisting of the wrist, and not exceed 5 pounds of force. Controls should be centered over sufficient clear floor space to ensure both left and right hand approach and use. Accessories with leading edges between 27 inches and 80 inches above the floor shall protrude 4 inches maximum into a circulation path. This is specifically designed to ensure detection by people who use a cane along the base of the wall, as shown in this illustration. Should the leading edge be at or below 27 inches, then the accessory may project any amount as long as the required minimum width of an adjacent clear access aisle is maintained. All floor standing and surface mounted units protruding more than 4 inches should be located in corners, alcoves, or between other structural elements. Takeaway number 4, recessed accessories that are recommended for the choice for eliminating protrusion from the wall, compliance issues, and ensuring accessibility. Mirrors located above lavatories or countertops must be installed with the bottom edge of the reflective surface 40 inches maximum above the finished floor. Note I said bottom of the reflective surface, not the bottom of the mirror or the mirror frame. A single mirrors not located over lavatories that must be installed with the bottom edge of the reflecting surface no more than 35 inches above the finished floor. A single mirror is recommended in each restroom. I should say a single full-length mirror is recommended in each restroom because it can be used by everyone, including people in a wheelchair as well as children. Soap dispensers installed over lavatories must be mounted so push buttons or operable parts meet the specified reach ranges. When the soap dispenser is mounted more than 20 inches from the edge of the counter, the soap dispenser mounting height is 44 inches maximum above the finished floor. Lavatory mounted soap dispensers and lever handled faucets should be spaced far enough apart to avoid interference with their operation. Paper towel dispensers, waste receptacles, and warm air hand dryers should be conveniently located in an area that is accessible to people using wheelchairs, preferably adjacent to accessible lavatory, as shown in the photograph. Install the towel dispenser waste receptacle unit with the towel dispenser, which is the operable part, maximum 48 inches above the floor. As I noted earlier, in California, that would be 40 inches. Hand dryers, start buttons and sensors, the operable part, again, 48 inches maximum above the floor. California, 40 inches. Sanitary napkin tampon vendors are recommended in all women's restrooms. The vendors should comply with the standards for operating mechanisms, clear floor space, accessible mounting height to provide universal access. Vendors with push button operations that are activated with less than 5 pounds of force are recommended for universally designed women's restrooms. Baby changing stations are increasingly found in men's and women's restrooms and in single-user family restrooms. While they are not a product category considered by the accessibility standards, baby changing stations are widely regarded as an important or even an essential feature in many facilities, particularly those that are frequented by families. Baby changing stations need to be located carefully to provide the needs of users while not preventing other restroom patrons, including those who use wheelchairs, from accessing and using the plumbing fixtures and dispensers in the restroom. Baby changing stations and installation and their use must comply with the following ADA and A117 standards. First of all, the mounting height to operate, clear floor space, controls and operable parts, force to open and close, working surface height, knee clearance height, and toe clearance depth. Takeaway number 5, position the baby changing stations in corners or add screens or floor standing waste receptacles on the open side of the unit that extend below 27 inches above the floor for the full depth of the changing bed to provide cane detection for patrons with low vision or the blind, alerting them to move away from an open baby changing station. Child protection seats are also found in public restrooms to provide a safe, secure, and convenient location for a child, generally weighing up to 50 pounds. Unlike the baby changing stations, child protection seats should be installed inside a toilet compartment on a side wall or partition, but never on the back of a door. This is to provide visual and physical access to the caregiver or parent using the toilet compartment. Like baby changing stations, they should be assessed for operability and reach in the up and down position. When in the down position, make sure there is adequate space to maneuver around the seated child. And the bottom of the lowered seat should be no less than 15 inches above the floor, the minimum reach range allowed by the ADA and A117 standards. All right, Zach, that brings us to the end of learning objective 3. Are there any more questions in chat?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that came in around mirrors. 1, are mirrors required to tilt? And 2, what was the mirror height above children's counters?
Okay. The ADA standards, the A117 standards, have no reference to tilting mirrors. I know tilting mirrors have been very common in healthcare facilities, nursing homes, because they provide visibility for someone seated in a wheelchair. But they're very difficult for the able-bodied to use. So the ADA basically says use a standard wall mirror, flat mirror on the wall, and mount it so that the bottom edge is 40 inches maximum above the floor, which is felt to be a good position to be used by someone in a wheelchair as well as someone standing. The second question was
regarding mirror height above children's counters.
Mirror height above children's counters. There is no standard on that. I don't know that the mounting height recommendations for children includes. No, they do not. They do not provide any guidelines on that. But I would say that if you're lowering the children's countertop or lavatory below 34 inches, I would suggest that the mirror be mounted maybe 6 inches above whatever the lower counter height is for children.
And there would be a separate, your children height counter, would that count for ADA? Like you would need a second counter or height.
There are no standards. There are no standards for that.
There's a question just, looking at a reference for the current ADA requirements, is there an online source with like a guideline for the current ADA requirements?
Well, you can look up the ADA requirements, design requirements. They're available on the internet.
Yeah. But
there's nothing in there that talks about, that I'm aware of, that talks about children's lavatory or children's countertop height. But if you are, I mean, I've seen restrooms for preschool, and I've seen toilets and I've seen toilet compartments. Everything is lowered. So if you're lowering the lavatory, which I'm sure you would, then I would say if you put the mirror within about 6 inches of the whatever the height you establish for the countertop or lavatory, that would probably work.
And just in terms of an online source as well, one thing I would say is that is where ATS is trying to fill in the void. So again, on atspec.com, we do have our learning hub, which has reference guides. We're going through, we've had the ADA for the 2010, and I think we might have a 2017 guide. I'll take a look to see if I can find that. There's a number of provincial standards that have updated in Canada over the last few years as well. And not that we have a lot of Canadian people, but we're doing a BC barrier-free code specific guideline and presentation in the next couple of weeks. And we'll have a similar one for any changes to ADA, where we'll have like a restroom guideline. We have a locker guideline for like how to build a barrier-free locker room. And of course, our ATS spec tool itself is regionally specific, where if you build a project in different states, you get the barrier-free code for those different products. So if you're ever looking to learn more on that front, please feel free to reach out to me. And then we did have another question coming in on some specifics around mirrors. The previous slide had showed a typical 40-inch above finished floor to reflective surface of mirror. There was also a 35-inch above finished floor dimension. Was that the ANSI dimension requirement, or what was the 35-inch AFF?
Okay, 40 inches above the floor for mirrors over lavatories or countertops. 35 inches above the floor when there is no countertop or lavatory.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
That is in the ADA.
Perfect. All right, and I think
all
that
right, let's
finishes
move
off the section. We can jump on to the next learning objective.
All right, let's move on to learning objective 4. Now we're into toilet compartments, different sizes and the accessories that complete their specification. Accessible toilet compartments are required in all public restrooms. That would be, I would say, multi-toilet public restrooms. You can have a public restroom that is a single user. Family does not necessarily need a toilet compartment. But if you have multiple compartments, then you need multiple toilets, then you need toilet compartments. And there are basically two different toilet compartment designs. There's the wheelchair accessible toilet compartment and the ambulatory accessible compartment. The wheelchair accessible compartment accommodates people who use wheelchairs. The ambulatory accessible toilet compartment accommodates people who use canes, walkers, or crutches to assist their mobility. There are 3 common transfer positions out of the wheelchair onto a toilet and back, and those are the diagonal approach, the side approach, and the perpendicular transfer that are shown in the illustrations on the right side. There are 2 types of wheelchair accessible toilet compartments. There's a standard front access and the large wheelchair accessible with side door access. The ADA standard front access wheelchair compartment is shown in the illustration on the right. And this has a 56-inch minimum depth for wall-hung toilets, 59-inch minimum depth for floor-mounted toilets. The minimum width is 60 inches. The toilet is positioned diagonally across from the entry door, and the toilet is offset from the side wall or side partition by 16 minimum to 18 inches maximum. Now that allows open space on the one side of the toilet. And that open space allows for the maneuvering onto and off of the maneuvering of the wheelchair from the entry in line to the open space, and then that allows for the transfer onto the toilet. Now, check local codes. They have different requirements for wheelchair accessible compartment size and configuration. As far as grab bars are concerned, grab bars must be mounted on the rear wall, shown in the plan view, and the side wall or partition also in the plan view. On the elevation drawing in the lower left, you'll see that the A117 requirement of a vertical grab bar, 18-inch minimum, that's mounted 39 to 41 inches from the rear wall. Now, a large wheelchair accessible toilet compartment with side door access shown is a very common end of the restroom alcove layout. The in-swing door must not overlap the required 56 inches by 60-inch clear floor space at the toilet. In the A117 2017 standard, there's a new alternate wheelchair accessible toilet compartment with a front door, front access that has a 60-inch minimum width and an 84-inch minimum depth. The ambulatory accessible compartment has a depth of 60 inches minimum. The ADA standards allow a range of 35 to 37 inches maximum width. The ICC standards have the same 35 to 37 inch standards, and that applies to both existing and new buildings. The self-closing door must not swing into the minimum interior space requirements. The door pull hardware must be installed on both sides of the door near the latch. Horizontal grab bars are used on both sides of the ambulatory accessible compartment, and the A117 standards, in addition, require a 18-inch vertical grab bar above the horizontal grab bar on both sides of the compartment. Takeaway number 7. The ambulatory accessible compartment is used in addition to a wheelchair accessible compartment where there are 6 or more plumbing fixtures, a total of toilets and urinals are provided in a single restroom layout. The ADA standards for toe clearance is 9 inches minimum above the finished floor for adults and 12 inches minimum for children, as shown on the right of this slide. It's required under the front and the open side of panel of wheelchair accessible compartments, and it excludes supporting stiles or partitions. So it's under the panel that the idea is to have space that the toe can swing and not get trapped in a wheelchair. Takeaway number 8. Toe clearance at the front is not required if the depth of the compartment is greater than 62 inches deep with a wall-hung toilet or 65 inches deep with a floor-mounted toilet. And toe clearance at the side is not required in a compartment greater than 66 inches wide. In the A117 standards, the toe clearance requirement is 12 inches minimum for adults and children, as shown on the right side here, and it must extend 8 inches minimum beyond the compartment front and one side, excluding any supporting panels or partitions or stiles. The toe clearance at the front and side is not required in a compartment greater than 67 inches in depth and 68 inches in width. Now, there's a major trend in toilet compartment design today to have increased privacy, including eliminating toe clearance. And that can be accommodated in these accessible compartments as follows. To avoid the need for toe clearance, increase the size of the wheelchair accessible compartment to 66 by 66 to comply with the ADA and the A117 for existing buildings, and increase it to 68 by 68 to comply with the 2017 A117 standards for new buildings. All doors and all accessible toilet compartments must include door pull hardware and self-closer. There must be a clear width opening of 32 inches minimum with the door open 90 degrees, as shown in the photograph. Outswing doors approached from the latch side must have an access aisle that is clear. That's a minimum of either 42 to 60 inches, depending upon the layout of the restroom and the toilet compartments. Toilets with undercut bowls are recommended. Flush control, such as levers, must comply with the standards for controls and operable parts and reach range requirements. In wheelchair accessible toilet compartments, the flush controls must be on the open side of the toilet. The height of the toilet seat must be 17 inches minimum to 19 inches maximum measured from the floor to the top of the seat. Toilet seats cannot be sprung to return to the lifted or raised position. And the ICC A117 standards require a vertical grab bar, 18 inches minimum, located 39 to 41 inches off the back wall above the horizontal side grab bar, as shown in the illustration in the lower right. Grab bars with circular cross sections must have a outside diameter of 1¼ inches minimum and 2 inches maximum, and an absolute clearance of 1½ inches between the grab bar and wall, or the grab bar and the toilet partition panel. Non-circular profiles such as ovals and rounded rectangles are permitted. The maximum and minimum horizontal mounting heights of grab bars are set to the top of the gripping surface, not to the grab bar center line. The horizontal sidewall grab bar next to an accessible toilet must be 42 inches long minimum, located 12 inches maximum from the rear wall, and extend 54 inches minimum. Takeaway number 10, we recommend use of a 48-inch long sidewall grab bar. The 6-inch longer bar eliminates many installation compliance problems. The 36-inch horizontal grab bar required to be mounted on the rear wall behind an accessible toilet must be located with 24-inch minimum length required on the open side of the toilet. The rear wall grab bar can be split into 2 bars to accommodate a high-rise flush valve, but you have to have 24-inch minimum length required on the open side of the toilet. And the ICC standards again require an 18-inch long vertical grab bar located 39 to 41 inches off the back wall above the horizontal side grab bar, as shown on the illustration on the upper left. A number of accessories should be included in every toilet compartment. All accessories must be located on a side wall or partition nearest the toilet and just in front of the leading edge of the toilet to ensure universal access. Regardless of dispenser outlets, no part of any accessory that projects from the wall or partition can be installed so as to interfere with maneuvering space or access to grab bars. If mounted above grab bars, no part of a protruding accessory can extend closer than 12 inches to the top of the grab bar. See the illustration on the lower left. In the same illustration, the space between the grab bar and any projected items below the grab bar shall be 1½ inches minimum. Recessed objects above the grab bar below the grab bar are permitted within the 12-inch area as shown in the illustration on the lower right. Takeaway number 11. The 2017 standards include, A117 standards include an exception that allows recessed units behind grab bars with less than 1.5 inch absolute grab bar wall clearance as an alternate design to the 2010 ADA standards. We'll have an illustration of that in just a moment. Rolled toilet tissue dispensers that allow continuous paper flow are required in all accessible restrooms. Dispensers that can control continuous paper delivery should not be used. The 2010 ADA standards require rolled toilet tissue dispensers be installed with the dispenser center line 7 to 9 inches in front of the leading edge of the toilet. The ICC A117 standards establish a different measurement protocol, locating the toilet tissue outlet between 24 inches minimum and 42 inches maximum from the rear wall of the toilet compartment. Sanitary napkin disposals are recommended in all women's toilet compartments for feminine hygiene waste. They should be mounted below grab bars. Toilet seat covers are an optional hygienic amenity that can easily be provided in all toilet compartments. The opening for the toilet seat cover dispensers needs to be mounted between 15 inches and 48 inches above the floor in an accessible location in relationship to the leading edge of the toilet for the 2010 ADA standards or the rear wall for the A117 standards. Combination units installed in sidewalls or partitions with grab bars can organize and unify installations by incorporating several accessories at one convenient location, such as a toilet tissue dispenser, toilet seat cover dispenser, sanitary napkin disposals for improved accessibility. As pointed out earlier, the A117 standards include an exception that allows recessed units behind grab bars with less than 1.5 inches absolute wall clearance as shown in the photograph. Note that if compliance with the ADA standard is a concern, then specify and install separate recessed or surface-mounted accessories, surface-mounted dispensers and disposal accessories, a minimum of 1.5 inches below the horizontal grab bar. Urinals were provided, should include at least one wall-hung urinal installed with rims 17 inches maximum above the finished floor. Urinals must be 13.5 inches minimum deep. The operable portion of the flush valve must be mounted no higher than 48 inches maximum above the floor or no higher than 44 inches if the urinal extends far enough to create at least 20 inches of reach. A clear floor space must be provided for forward approach in front of those urinals, and that clear floor space should be 30 inches by 48 inches for the ADA or the A117 for existing buildings, and it should be 30 by 52 for the A117 for new buildings, 30 inches wide by 52 inches minimum. Okay, that brings us to the end of learning objective number 4. Zach, do we have questions in the chat?
We have a few questions, and I guess first off, thanks for those that are putting in the extra time with us. We had a number of great questions at each of these little sectional breaks, and we are running a little bit over, so appreciate your patience, and thank you, Alan, for giving us a little bit of extra time as well.
Sure.
I know we're kind of wrapping up near the end here, so we've got a few questions here, and then let's kind of finish it off. Question on surrounding the grab bar and the minimum clearance, the 1.5 inch minimum clearance there. There's kind of two questions that go a little bit hand in hand. One is the minimum clearance of the 1.5 inches from the underside of the grab bar or the center line of the grab bar.
It's 1.5 absolute clearance would be the plane of the wall or the panel, and it would be the center of the grab bar. It would be the center of the diameter of the grab bar.
And on that same point, you kind of referenced it there when you said the wall or the panel. So for the sidewall grab bars, especially when you have like a toilet tissue dispenser behind the sidewall grab bar, as we showed in the image, have you had AHJs that object to the thickness of the flange and that flange encroaching on the 1.5 inch distance? Is it
Yes.
the distance from the, from the toilet tissue dispenser? Or is the issue, or is the distance from, say, the partition or the wall?
Number one, we have had many issues with the AHJ and building inspectors that have seen that the grab bar in front of the accessory has a reduced wall clearance. There may be 1.5 inch wall clearance on the side of the accessory, but in front of the unit, the face of the unit may be 3/16 of an inch that protrudes into the 1.5 inch space. That's considered a violation. In those situations where we recommend use of either surface mounted or recessed combination units below the grab bar, so that we avoid that interference.
Ultimately, I think the favorite line of most manufacturers, or at least of the authority having jurisdiction, is the authority having jurisdiction has jurisdictional authority.
Right.
That's what they tend to tell me. So if the
Yep.
AHJ is saying it, then you kind of gotta
Yeah,
follow what they're saying.
It's the one area in of all of our products in the restroom where we have had consistent application of the standards, and it's also against one standard that is the only absolute standard, which is 1.5 inches. There's no plus or minus. There's no minimum or no maximum. It's 1.5 inches, and that's why we now recommend put those accessories under the grab bar. Don't use the combination units that go behind the grab bar. And there are combination units that Bobrick offers that are horizontal combination units for use under grab bars, not vertical combination units that go behind grab bars.
So I recognize we do have some more questions coming in, but I want to make sure we respect everyone's time. We can have some additional questions at the end if people want to stick around, but I think we should try to finish off here.
Thank you, Zach. I'll move into our last learning objective, and that is to discuss the requirements for bathing facilities. Bathing facilities for people with disability are required in a wide variety of buildings listed here. The bathing facilities basically fall into two categories: the individual shower compartments and the combination tub shower units. The transfer shower compartments are the most common type of individual shower compartment used to accommodate people with disabilities. They must be 36 by 36 inside dimensions, which again is absolute, with a fixed or folding L-shaped shower seat or rectangular shower seat mounted on a sidewall opposite the shower head and controls. The 36 by 36 inches addresses the reach and safety needs of adult users. Curbs may be installed, but that must be no higher than 1/2 inch. The standards also require that there be a 36 by 48 clear floor space in front of the compartment to position the chair for transfer. That would be for the ADA, and existing buildings. For new buildings, that space has to be 36 by 52. A handheld shower on a hose can be used as both a fixed shower head and a handheld shower required in accessible compartments. The hose has a minimum length of 59 inches long. Use of an adjustable vertical slide bar for the handheld shower is optional. Roll-in shower compartments are also known as curbless showers. They're very functional for people who use a castered shower chair for bathing. The roll-in shower compartments are required to be at least 30 inches by 60 inches wide, 30 inches deep by 60 inches wide. This allows replacement of an existing tub to create a roll-in shower compartment. Additionally, the ADA and ICC standards require a clearance 30 inches wide, minimum by 60 inches long, maximum, be provided adjacent to the open face of the standard roll-in shower. This allows transfer, and that the space may incorporate knee and toe clearance under an adjacent lavatory or countertop. Takeaway number 12, we suggest you consider larger sizes than 30 by 60. We think the 30 in depth makes it very difficult to contain water in that shower compartment. We ask you to consider 36 by 60, 48 by 60, or even 60 by 60 to contain the water in the shower area. Curbs should be avoided or minimized. If they have to be employed, then we want maximum half inch in height. Grab bars must be installed in all accessible bathing facilities. Horizontal grab bars in showers must be mounted 33 to 36 inches to the top of the gripping surface above the finished floor. 2 horizontal grab bars or a single 2-wall grab bar must be installed on the walls next to and opposite the folding shower seat in transfer shower compartments as is shown in this figure. The standard roll-in shower compartment must have grab bars installed within 6 inches maximum of the corners, as shown in the illustration on the right. The ICC standards require that 18-inch vertical grab bar be mounted on the control wall, 4 inches maximum from the front edge, as shown in the illustration on the left. Combination tub shower units must have a horizontal grab bar mounted at the foot of the tub on the left side wall here that extends at least 24 inches from the front edge of the tub, and 2 parallel horizontal grab bars mounted on the back wall. The upper bar is mounted at the standard height, 33 to 36 inches above the floor, and the lower grab bar is mounted 8 inches to 10 inches above the rim. In tubs with a removable in-tub seat, the back wall grab bar lengths are specified at 24 inches. Bathtubs with removable in-tub seats must have a 4th horizontal grab bar mounted at the head of the tub on the right side wall here that extends 12 inches from the front of the tub. And finally, the A117 standards require a vertical grab bar 18 inches long minimum mounted on the control wall on the left side wall here at 4 inches from the front edge. Shower seats must be mounted with the tops of the seat 17 to 19 inches above the finished floor. Roll-in transfer shower compartments must have a 3-inch maximum space between the seat edge and the compartment entry opening, a larger permissible 2.5-inch maximum gap between the seat and seat wall, and a 1.5-inch maximum space from the side edge of the seat to the adjacent wall. Takeaway number 13, note the maximum 3-inch space allowed between the seat edge and compartment entry. Previous standards require the seat to be a full depth of a 36 by 36-inch compartment, which pushed the shower seat, which pushed the shower curtain beyond the entry of the compartment and allowed water to flow onto the floor outside the compartment. This 3-inch maximum space allows the shower curtain to hang vertically, keeping water safely within the compartment. Roll-in shower compartments with seats can now use either the rectangular seat design shown on the upper left, as well as the previously required L-shaped seat shown on the upper right. Upholstered and cushioned seats are preferable by people with disabilities for their comfort, while water resistant solid phenolic seats are vandal resistant and more sanitary. Soap dishes should be placed on the same wall as the shower head and controls, where they are least likely to collect standing water. It is recommended that soap dishes be recessed and mounted 38 inches to 48 inches above the floor when installed in shower compartments, or they could be mounted between the grab bar and the rim of the bathtub. Shower curtains work well as enclosures for users and including people who use wheelchairs. If other types of shower enclosures are used, they should be fold back completely out of the way so as not to obstruct transfer to shower seats or interfere with shower controls. And they must not incorporate a track along the floor or rim of the bathtub. Medicine cabinets installed in bathrooms must be installed so the bottom edge of the reflective surface of the mirror is no higher than 40 inches above the finished floor. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. I thank you for your interest and your time. If you have any questions about the program, if you have any questions about accessibility standards for a specific project, don't hesitate to get in touch with the ATS team or me. Zach, you want to finish off with some questions?
Yeah, I guess I'll just cover a couple things really quickly here. First, again, do appreciate everyone sticking around, extra time with us. There were some questions around the reporting of attendance using the link provided from Bobrick. As much as I understand is that you need to just click that link, I guess create an account or log into your existing account and assign yourself to the webinar. This is Bobrick's and their CEU events process. Unless you have any more additional information to share, Alan, that's unfortunately all I know. So if there's challenges afterwards, please let us know as we send out our follow-up, and we'll work with Bobrick to ensure that you are being taken care of. Secondly, in terms of the copies of the presentation, we'll get a PDF copy of the presentation. And if you would like a copy when we send out that follow-up, please do let us know. And finally, I'm not going to take too long on this, but I do want to just very quickly cover the ATS spec tool because I did reference it a couple of times. If you go into atspec.com, this is our product selection, product configuration software tool, with our wonderful sponsors from everyone from Lixil, Frankie, to our favorite sponsor, Bobrick today. You can find all of our previous presentations in the Architects and Engineers Learning Hub, in the webinar recordings, as well as I referenced a locker design guide. If you go to our ATS knowledge base, we have design support. You can see we are focusing on the new 2024 BC code update. We have a presentation coming for that. We do a number of regional updates. And if you go to design support, we also have special needs breakdown by state for the adult change tables. ADA compliant locker room design, focused specifically on lockers and the shower area there. This is all associated with your free account. So it's all free for architects, engineers. It's paid for by our lovely manufacturers. And once you're logged in, you can share projects across your firm, within your firm. Basically, you are just going to create a folder and add drop to that folder. There's various levels of degrees of folder. Quick spec is as it sounds. Project has specific location details and application details so that we can recommend the appropriate barrier-free code. And masters are products that you are using all the time. I've already created a really quick Bobrick accessibility demo project here. Kind of just went through the general process of adding a partition, which would be as simple as going to the add product page, finding the category that you were looking for, like partition, or using the filters here on the left to filter by division. So if you're looking for, your change tables, your towel dispensers, partitions like we talked about, if you're looking for access doors, furniture and furnishings, filter down by division, find what you're looking for. So if we were talking about that grab bar, there was that 42-inch long grab bar, we go into the grab bar category, and you're actually be able to configure your selection. So we could find the 42-inch long grab bar, find our, satin surface, or if we want the peen gripping surface, and that's going to update your model number, give you a list price. And this is important because it's actually giving you the product that you're selecting, not just the generic model number. So ensuring that your specs are accurate and detailed, which you can then download in about 10 different formats. I'll show you one other of my favorite ways of adding products. We have our ATS templates and your masters. You could add as many specific standards of masters. So you can have an accessible accessories master, or you can use our ATS templates, which have accessible breakdowns. So we can search by project type. We can go to our US Office master template, and here's, some barrier-free toilets and basins. If you're more interested in the architectural accessories, like, there's a lot of different product in here, from HVAC and mechanical equipment to lockers and benches and partitions that are more on the architectural side. You can select a standard architectural accessory package, or remove some of the products that maybe we don't use in our neck of the woods. If we have a favorite hand dryer, and then you can just simply drag and drop into your project. So in a matter of minutes, you've got a complete architectural accessory package, and then you can, adjust and edit, delete as needed. You would hit the generate spec docs page here and download everything in submittal format. We have 3 different types of written specs, schedules in Excel, all the Revit files, all the manufacturer's cut sheets, a product brochure, which is kind of more of a nicer looking package, and our submittal package. So just to show some of the examples here, manufacturer spec sheet package, as it sounds. The product brochure package gives a little bit of the key details, nicer image. And then of course the submittal package, which shows exactly what you specified, including all the options that you've ticked off along the way. 2 different types
Zach,
of...
Zach, excuse me, I have to step away, but thank you very much. And thank everyone for their
Understood.
attention.
2 different types of written spec, all available in open and editable formats that you can copy and paste into your own documentation. And then of course, a fixture schedule in Excel, all the Revit files that you can need, all the other details. So recognizing that everyone's probably needing to get going, that's my very quick introduction to ATS. If you do have any questions, would like a deeper dive into the spec tool, if you would like to follow up on any specifics that we covered today, obviously we ran a little bit long because there was a number of great questions. So if you have additional questions, just respond to the follow-up. We'll have an email out usually by the end of the week with our certificates of attendance, as well as a introduction of how we can help you out going forward. If you need a copy of presentation, additional questions, details, follow-ups, zach@atspec.com. If this is your first time, I hope you come back for another one. Have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.